Just before the break here on Legal View, I asked Atlanta attorney Philip Holloway the question, what about a damning statement that a wife makes to her husband in an interview room at the police station when presumably they don't assume anyone can hear? And that statement from Leanna Harris was to her husband, "Why, did you say too much?" Look, Philip, on its surface it sounds awful, but it is defensible, as is everything. Is it defensible enough to actually avoid a charge in this case?
Well, what's more interesting than the statement was and I've got my notes here from court yesterday, apparently the defendant told the wife he dreaded how Cooper would look when he found him. And so we got to explore the context of these statements. We've got to see the entire conversation. It raises a very interesting legal issue, though, as to whether or not that might even be admissible in court, because in Georgia, taping private conversations can be illegal. It all depends on whether or not he was considered to be in a public or a private place. So this is going to be something that I guarantee you the defense in this case is going to be exploring very, very closely.
Philip, I want you to jump in here as well, because while we're comparing cases to other famous cases that these defense attorneys might actually be looking very carefully at, and the prosecutors while we're at it, you know, Scott Peterson also had an affair, and a lot of circumstantial evidence, and ultimately there was a conviction in that case. I'm not even sure if there was any computer activity going on, but when they talk about all the sexting that was going on with this defendant, Justin Ross Harris, as his child was dying, do you think that there is anything that leads you to believe that the people in your community need to stay out of this, that the prosecutors need to move this case somewhere else, that it is already too damning, it is already too high profile?
Well, I don't really know where you're going to go anywhere in the state of Georgia that doesn't have the same information. Obviously, it's on national television, so if it gets moved, they're going to have to try to find some place, you know, that might be more neutral. But let me go back to the smell thing. I've actually smelled that before myself when I was a police officer. It's something that is absolutely... it still sticks with me to this day. It's absolutely remarkable how strong and unforgettable that is. The district attorney was vilified in social media about how he charged this case initially as murder, and I think now we're beginning to understand why. And, you know, there was a YouTube video and things like that that came out. You know, once we now know that you got a guy who's getting in a hot car where there's an immediate smell of death, and that his story seemingly doesn't add up, that explains why the charging decision was made at the time that it was made.
And let's remember, everyone, as we go forward covering this case, that charging decision may not end up being what the ultimate charges come from out of the grand jury. And I have to leave it there, but thank you to all of you, Philip Holloway, Sunny Hostin, Danny Savalos, and to our viewers.